The Confident Stock podcast is brought to you by My Evergreen Med Spa. Located in Houston in the Woodlands, My Evergreen Med Spa brings to you the latest aesthetic treatments in the most luxurious environment. Remember, My Evergreen Med Spa, it's me time elevated. Welcome back to the Confident Stock Podcast. I'm Dr. Rednam. I'm a board-certified plastic surgeon here in Houston, Texas with My Houston Surgeons. And today, we actually have our first lawyer on the podcast. So welcome to the show. I have, and I'm going to pronounce it, Whitney Bona, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you for coming on the show. So I was really intrigued with your background and history. So for our listeners, tell us a little bit about, I know you started off as a personal injury lawyer.
Yes, I was a personal injury lawyer. I was handling mostly mesothelioma cases, which I ended up handling a lot of cases against makeup companies for talc in our makeup being contaminated with asbestos and then causing a lot of my clients to develop mesothelioma. So I was, handling those types of cases. And then I ended up starting an Instagram where I was kind of talking about these cases and, warning people about some of the dangers of these things in our cosmetic products and our makeup, because I was like, oh my gosh, I was kind of in shock when I first started handling those cases and, learning everything that was going on. So, and then from there, I ended up having lots of women start reaching out to me about actually plastic surgery related cases and, botched plastic surgery, injuries at med spas and things like that. So for a period of time there, I was handling a lot of those cases and consulting on a lot of those cases. And, so it was, that was really, really interesting. And I'm sure, in your practice, I mean, I can imagine that you've probably seen some crazy things that kind of can go on in your field. So I'm happy to talk to you about some of that and some of the cases that I've handled.
It sounds like it was pretty eye-opening for you to see like all these things there. I think one thing I know from my side of things is that it just shows you not only like how much you have to do your homework, but also how many unregulated people are doing things out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that, when some of these women started reaching out to me, I'm going and looking up, obviously, the provider that they went to and digging in on these people. And I'm having to call the clients back and say, this person doesn't even have a license. I had one case where the lady that she went to literally had a real estate license. That was the only license that I could find for this woman. And she had a full Instagram where she was injecting people with all kinds of things. And I was like, there's a big problem here. And, and then the big problem is too, when you go to someone who is not licensed, they don't have a license. So that they don't have any kind of insurance or anything. They don't have any money to cover, and so these people are going to these places getting really seriously injured. And then, they go and try and find a lawyer after that. And you have to tell them, I'm sorry, there's really nothing that we can do here. And it's just really, really sad.
And I can tell you, here in Houston, I found out that a cosmetologist was doing the illegal injections, basically using like the air dynamic ones. And I was like, okay, I got to report this person. Like, she clearly knew what she was doing. It was almost impossible for me to figure out a way to get in contact with her short of social media. And unfortunately, when I reported her to the Texas Medical Board, they said, unfortunately, since she's not a medical practitioner, they can't do anything about it. And I was like, well, who am I supposed to, and she's like, a lot of these people that do this, they're very savvy about staying under the radar so that you can't catch them. But like people are getting hurt.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, and it's not just the people that are providing the services. So I don't know if you guys have a lot of these. You said you're in Houston, right? I don't know if you guys have a lot of like recovery homes or plastic surgery recovery houses out there. Okay, so we have a huge problem with those in South Florida, where it is just, I mean, it is wild, the stuff that is going on. And, people are going to these recovery houses after their surgeries, and these people are not licensed. They don't have the proper things that, they're supposed to have in place to be able to run this type of an establishment. A lot of times these women are telling me stories where they're getting picked up after their surgery in, like an unmarked vehicle by some person that they don't know, getting taken to like a residential house, and they get there and there's all these people in there that are like recovering from surgeries. It's unsanitary. There's, supposed to be registered nurses, and that's what they're told beforehand. And then they get there and it's not. They have, just these random people in there running the place and getting infections, getting all these horrible things. And then it's the same situation. These people move around a lot too. So it can be hard to even track them down once you get out of there. But it's like, they don't have any type of license or anything. You can't report them to a licensing board. They don't have insurance. They don't have any like money that you can go after. So it's just a really, really bad situation. And a lot of these women that I talk to, I'm like, you're really lucky that you just made it out of this entire situation alive, because, you get those really horrific infections like that. And it's just, yeah, it's horrible.
It could be your life. I mean, you really can be.
Truly. Yeah.
And, there are places in town, the recovery houses that I have patients stay at, and we're very particular for a reason. I have to meet the owner. I need to know what's going on there, because anyone can throw up an Instagram page and call themselves a luxury house. Mm-hmm. Like, that doesn't mean that they actually are in any way qualified, like you said, to do it. And you don't know how many people are stuck in there and like what's being reused. And it's just not worth it. When things sound too good to be true, when the price is too good to be true, there's a reason. Mm-hmm. There's a reason for it.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that even with the surgery, Miami is really a hotbed for discounted plastic surgery. And you have these people that travel from all over the place to go down there because the surgery is so cheap. And then I'm like, there's a reason why it's so cheap. They're running these kind of surgery mills out of these strip mall parking lots and doing God knows how many surgeries every day. And it's just, I don't know. It's just crazy. And I understand wanting to get a bargain. I understand, people are on a budget, but this isn't the type of thing that you should be, budget shopping for. So,
yeah, exactly. There are other places in your life. If you need a cut, you can cut from.
Yes. Find somewhere else to save the money, because man, I mean, I've just seen and heard some crazy things, and it not always, but it typically always starts with, I went here because it was, they had a great deal, or it was a BOGO surgery or something like that. And it just doesn't seem to end well.
I can't often make blanket statements, but I can absolutely tell you that no board certified plastic surgeon will ever do a BOGO. Like, that's just not going to happen. So if you see that, go ahead and look elsewhere.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing too, is, there's a lot of the cosmetic surgeons that are down. Well, really, I mean, they're all over the place now, but people don't really know the difference between that. So that's another thing that, I had conversations with women after the fact. This was not, they would say, oh, well, this guy was triple board certified. And, I would have to say, not really. That doesn't really mean anything. And there's a big difference between a board certified plastic surgeon and a cosmetic surgeon. But, people just don't really know or understand the difference there. So there's just a lot to really look at and consider, I think, before somebody gets plastic surgery. And not even just surgery, even some of these things that, non-invasive stuff from a med spa. I mean, I've had so many people reach out to me because I think the med spas are even worse. They're just very unregulated. There's crazy stuff going on in those places. And so if you're not really, really careful about where you're going, bad things
Well,
can
I'm
happen.
actually very proud of Texas right now because we actually just passed some stricter laws. Because I can tell you, I'm part of some med spas that with our practice, and we were very selective about who we hired. But now you actually not only have to, if you're a medical director, which we are plastic surgeons who are medical directors of our own spas, you have to list your license there. You have to list your qualifications. So now you can. It's very clear if you have a gastroenterologist or a family practice doctor there, and they're making everything stricter, which I can see some people saying, oh, well, that makes it harder. Well, no, now you're going to have better qualified and better safety in your medical spas.
Right. Yeah. I saw someone the other day, I think it might have been in Texas, posting about, I think that there's a lot of maybe nurse practitioners, or maybe it was registered nurses, that they're worried that they might not be able to kind of keep running their practices. Is that something that's a potential there?
Yes. So with this new rule, you have to, you can no longer, I can tell you, I bet you many plastic surgeons, including myself, I've been approached by people through Instagram. Hey, I'll pay you $500 a month to be my medical director. But when they say that type of thing, they mean like, you just sign off. I'm not meeting anybody. I would never do that. I'd never put my license on the line. I have no idea what they're doing there. And so a lot of these places, that's the situation. They just have some doctor signing off now. But with the new stricter regulations and laws, that's not possible. So you can't just, a PA or nurse practitioner can't just own a place and not have an actual present person there.
Okay.
And so we have to be within a certain area. We have to be able to handle complications. So if you're not the right specialty, you don't know what to do with those complications. They can't just go to the ER. So I personally think these are great things because it means better safety for everybody. But yeah, it means that there are some places that maybe have been in business a while that could go out of business.
Okay. Yeah, I saw somebody post something, and I when you were just saying that, I thought that it might have been Texas. So, I think that a lot of states are still just so wildly unregulated when it comes to med spas. And so I think that it's hopefully a step in the right direction to see more states passing things to just have some better standards in place, and, things being monitored somewhat, because it's kind of crazy what's going on in a lot of places.
Well, you can be in the medical field and be duped too, right? Like I have friends who are other doctors, some even surgeons, who didn't know the difference between a cosmetic surgeon and a plastic surgeon. And it's just because it's not clear. There's a lot of messaging from the cosmetic surgery world about how they're better qualified, even though it is not recognized by the American Board of Medical Specialties, which every other surgical specialty is. So, I mean, that just tells you something. But like, when you have money to market yourself and lobby, then things people look the other way. So I'm all about educating and being safe with our patients.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great.
So now I know now currently though, you moved away though from the legal world. Am I correct?
Yes, correct. So towards the end of last year, I really made the decision that I was going to take a break from practicing law, which was a really, really hard decision to make, because, it's something that I've worked so hard to become and to build, and I've been in this field for so long. But it was just really, I have 2 little kids, and the type of litigation that I was doing, it was just, I was on the road all the time. I was traveling so much. I was gone from home. And, when you're doing any kind of trial work, I mean, it's grueling long hours. It's just so much time away from home. And so I just really had kind of a whole awakening, and really just kind of thought about, what I want these next however many years of my life to look like while my kids are still little and they're at home. And so, I made the decision to kind of step away from practicing law. I had started kind of building this platform on Instagram. So I sort of sat and went, okay, what am I going to do now? Like, what am I going to do with this thing? Because before it was always kind of law related, and okay, I'm going to use this to bring in cases and that kind of thing. So I actually ended up going and getting certified as a health and wellness coach. And so now I'm working with women, more so like career women, just helping them prioritize their health. And then also doing some kind of business coaching and helping other people get started on Instagram and things like that. So yeah, I've taken a really wild detour here.
So with it, is this something that you're able, then you don't really have to travel, right? This is something that you're able probably to do from home.
Yeah, I'm doing all of the coaching and that kind of stuff remotely. And then, I'm doing a lot of podcasts and fun things like this. And some of them, you'll travel for, but most of them are remote too. So, it's just a much better schedule, and I can kind of work this all around my kids and be home for everything that I want to be home for. So it's been a really nice transition.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
My son is almost 4 and my daughter is 6.
Okay, I have my daughter, my 2 girls, 4, and my older one will be 7 in just a couple weeks. So right at there, and I get it, because like it is hard. People are a lot of times like, how do you balance when we're both busy professionals? And you sometimes got to figure it out. You got to make it up as you go. But it sounds like you're still getting, it sounds like where you kind of came from is still a part of you. But it's nice that you've been able to create a whole new space and something that sounds like you're passionate about.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing was, I was looking at some other law jobs that maybe I wouldn't have had to travel as much, or maybe it wasn't a trial lawyer position, but I was like, that was honestly the only thing that I enjoyed about being a lawyer was the trial and the action. And I was like, I don't want just like a desk job, some kind of desk lawyer job where I'm doing discovery all day or something like that. And so, I went through this whole process of just trying to figure out what is it that I want to do next that I actually enjoy and I'm passionate about. And so, it's still kind of a new thing and the coaching and all of that, but it's going really well so far. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. So
tell me a little bit more about the type of coaching, because there's obviously different people have different focuses. So what is like the average client that you have?
Yeah. So right now it's kind of been more, I would say other professional women. So women that are, I've had some doctors that I've consulted with, and other lawyers, other just, busy career moms that are, one, either just having a really hard time prioritizing themselves and prioritizing their own health. And so it's really a situation where I feel like I can really relate to where they're at, because I was in that same exact place where, you're just juggling so many things and not taking care of yourself and not making any time for yourself. And so that's been sort of the main kind of clients that I've been working with. And then, also, like I mentioned, other women that are maybe kind of going through a similar thing where they've been in a specific career for a long time. And now they're trying to figure out, okay, I actually hate this. I hate my life. I don't want to do this anymore. But, this is, I think for a lot of people, your career becomes part of your identity. And I'm sure you feel that as a doctor,
Absolutely.
as a surgeon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I just couldn't separate myself from, I'm a trial lawyer. Like that's what I always wanted to be. And I worked all this time to become. So, just kind of helping other women sort of go through that process and figure out, one, are you just like really burnt out and maybe you need to shift some things around, or, are you done and you just want to fully switch into a different career? And then just kind of helping them figure out, okay, what is it that you want to do so that you don't jump into something else that you hate? You want to really kind of think that process through. So those are kind of the two main areas where I've been really helping people lately.
And I can tell you definitely, like when you've gone through all the school we've all gone through, and it is hard. It's hard because sometimes when you change, you're like, oh, I'm giving up on it. And it's just that mentality we all have, like, oh gosh, well, I'm failing at this. And I think it's very healthy to be like, no, I'm just making different. I'm changing something for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And, for some people too, I feel like a lot of women are kind of coming to a place, I think, especially after you have kids and you have a family, I'm seeing so many more women who are going out and starting their own businesses. Maybe they're not, shifting their whole career, but maybe it's starting your own law firm or starting your own practice or starting something. And obviously there's lots of challenges and additional work that goes along with that. But I think that there's just so many women who are wanting more flexibility and control, I think, over their schedules so that they can kind of fit their business around their family versus having it be the other way around, because that's just, when you work for somebody else, that's just that's how it is. So,
yeah. What are some things that you're very excited about with this, like with your new direction?
I think I'm just excited about, I love that I'm helping people in a different way. So I always wanted to be a lawyer, and I always knew that I wanted to do personal injury because I wanted to help people. And so I knew that whatever I was transitioning to, I still wanted to be, helping people, serving people in some way. And so I'm really excited that I can kind of take all of this stuff that my personal journey and everything that I've gone through and use that to be able to help other people, help other women, help other moms. And I'm also just excited. I don't know. I just feel like there's so many different opportunities and things that have been coming my way lately. And just getting invited to do things and speak at things that, I would have never in my wildest dreams thought that I would be asked to speak at, or, come on a podcast, even like this, like just going on people's podcasts and things like that I'm doing. So I'm really just having a lot of fun right now, honestly.
Well, that's awesome. Like when I started doing this podcast, it was kind of similar. I'm like, okay, is this something different? But I've met so many amazing people. And what I've really loved is that I felt like my podcast has really connected, the people that listen, like I've been able to connect them to so many amazing women and men. We've had some men on here too, but like just so many amazing people and like things that I didn't even know existed. And resources like this are really awesome because like I said, your unique background makes you very qualified to be able to help like a very specific group of women. And they may not have known if they didn't listen,
Right. Yeah. I think it's crazy. I think the whole coaching world is something that, I just didn't realize how many different types of coaches are out there. And it's like you can, whatever it is that you need help with, you can find somebody that can help you, get to wherever you're trying to go faster. So it's a really kind of fascinating industry. But yeah, I've been meeting lots of other coaches and just people in different niches. And it's really interesting. And like you just said, it's so nice to have so many resources and know all these people that know about all these different things. So
yeah. So you said you went back and you got a certification for it. How does that work? How did you find out about that certification?
I just did some research. There's, for all different types of coaching, there's different certification programs that you can do. So there's certain schools that focus more on like nutrition coaching, or if it's, health and wellness, or there's even life coaching. You can get a certification in that. And, there's different credentialing agencies for kind of each of those. But I just kind of did some research and found there were different programs. I just picked one that worked for me and I did it. And, it was
gave you a good starting point, right? To figure out what you wanted to do.
Yeah. It gave me a good starting point. And, it gives you, I think the thing with coaching is like, clearly you're not, I'm not a doctor, I can't like give anybody medical advice or anything like that, but it's more so just kind of helping people set realistic goals, give somebody almost like an accountability partner where, you have somebody that you're checking in with and making sure that you're meeting the goals that you're, wanting to hit in whatever area it is. So it's really, really, it's a very useful, I don't know. I think in the past I was always like, people would hire a coach for this. Like, that's crazy. But I've started hiring coaches and, I've done some group coaching programs and I'm like, wow, this is so helpful. And especially the group coaching, because I think it's really helpful if you get into a space with other people that are kind of in a similar place that you're in, and you can bounce ideas off of people and you can help each other. And it's just, I don't know. I'm a big proponent of coaching now. So
My mind has changed a lot about coaching because, like, when I would hear that term, I'm like, okay, how does this person qualify to tell me? But I think that, like you said, there's so many different niches now, and like really, I could totally see how someone who is a busy professional would be like, oh, she gets it because you've been that you that is your world, and so like, okay, it's really like having a trusted person that can give you advice because they have the same background as you. So I'm all for it. We can all use a little help.
Yes, yes. Some of us need more than others, but
Yeah, exactly. Well, nobody does anything by themselves. We all need a good support system. The most amazing people I know have part of the reason they do what they do is because they figured that out earlier than others, and they have this unbelievable support system. You just don't always see it.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Well, that's awesome. And I think what you're out there doing is amazing. And, do you ever see yourself going back into practicing law, or you feel like this is your new path?
I don't know. I never will say never, and I'm going to keep all of my licenses up to date, and I'm licensed in more than one. I haven't had to take more than one bar exam, and I am never I'm never going to have to do that again. So, I'll never say never, but I don't know. Maybe down the road one day, if my kids get a little bit older and I miss the chaos and stress of trial, maybe I'll decide to go back. But, I'm also just excited to see what everything else I'm doing kind of turns into and what this all grows into. So, who knows what will happen down the road, but I don't have any plans to go back into that anytime soon.
Not anytime soon. Yeah. Well, I will tell you, we have a lot of our listeners are busy professionals. And if somebody's listening, they're like, wow, I really resonate with her. How would they find you? What would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah. So they can find me on Instagram. My handle is @LowTalksLawyer. I also have a website is lowtalkslawyer.com. And then I have a new podcast that's coming out soon called The Wellness Verdict. So they can tune into that. The first episode is going to be out in a few weeks. So I'm excited about that too.
I like the name. That's catchy. It's good.
I did a lot of, there was a lot of name changes before we decided on that one, but.
Oh yeah. You gotta find one that like makes sense.
Yeah.
With you. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm happy with where it landed. So.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. This is really great. And hopefully, like I said, all our listeners, you learned a little bit something new. That's always my goal with the podcast. And another great resource. So check her out. Check out her Instagram. We'll have everything tagged in our comments so that people can find you. And thank you again for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you all for joining us on the Confidence Doc podcast. I hope you learned something and stay tuned for next week.